The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, I rise here tonight to give the Conservatives an idea that might get them re-elected. Does that get their attention, Mr. Speaker? Polling shows clearly that the majority of Canadians are ready to pay more to reduce CO2 emissions. They're ready to pay more to put a price on carbon. You would think that the political parties would pay attention to what Canadians indicate they want, but let's look at the political realities around here. The Conservatives have no plan to reduce CO2. They have no plan to put a price on carbon. On the contrary, they subsidize big oil and big gas companies, and not even Canadian companies. Here's an enlightening fact, Mr. Speaker. Since 2009, thanks to Conservative inaction, Canada's carbon emissions have been steadily going up, not down, and that rise is expected to continue. There are real costs to this inaction, Mr. Speaker. The National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy estimated that without real action, climate change will cost Canada $5 billion a year just 6 years from now. By 2050, they predict we will be paying between $21 and $43 billion each year. The Liberals, in true Liberal fashion, say they're ready to put a price on carbon. They just won't say what kind, or when, or how. The NDP, to be different than the Liberals, decided a decade ago, I was there, that they are in favor of cap and trade. They don't really know how it works, because they don't really know much about business. But therefore, cap and trade, and even though it would be bureaucratic, expensive, and it won't work. So where does that leave the Green Party? The Green Party of Canada understands that we need to shift steadily to reduce CO2 and foster renewable, sustainable energy sources. It has to be done in an orderly manner so as not to kill the Canada goose that lays the economic eggs. But it has to be done steadily and progressively so we can build Canadian green technologies, create Canadian jobs, remain competitive internationally, and save a very nice planet, Mr. Speaker. The fix is simple. Put a price on carbon. Pay a little now to avoid paying a lot more in a few short years. We've seen it implemented very successfully in Scandinavian and European countries, even in BC. That's why the Green Party of Canada is totally in favor of a price on CO2 under a method called carbon fee and dividend. Just Google it. A big misconception is that people will be directly taxed from a carbon fee. That's not true, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives actively try to promote this untruth so that either they are willingly misleading the public or they don't understand how carbon fee and dividend works. No Canadian will be taxed under carbon fee and dividend. This fee would be applied only at the source. Producers would pass the costs on, but to alleviate the cost to consumers, the revenue collected from that fee would be given directly back to each and every Canadian on an equal per capita basis. Mr. Speaker, the benefits of carbon fee and dividend are clear, and they extend to the environment, the economy, and to every single Canadian. The NDP should support it because it will reduce poverty at the same time it reduces CO2. The Liberals should support it because sooner or later they have to come off the fence and pick some kind of price on carbon. This is the best alternative. But, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives especially should support it because it's market-driven, predictable, fair, creates no new bureaucracy or increased government costs, and not one penny goes to government. And it might just save their hold on government in the next election. So, Mr. Speaker, will the government consider carbon fee and dividend?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, our government's record is very clear. We have taken decisive action on the environment while protecting our economy. Engaging or moving forward with either a national carbon tax or a national cap-and-trade scheme would be out of step with the United States, our largest trading partner, and would compromise our economic competitiveness. It could also lead to significant regional impacts on investment in jobs and trade-exposed sectors, given the integration of the North American economy. Instead, Mr. Speaker, our government is implementing a sector-by-sector regulatory approach to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Regulations are being designed to respond to individual sectoral circumstances while spurring the innovation needed to decouple emissions growth from economic growth. balancing concern for both the environment and the economy. This approach is driving real reductions of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada, while ensuring Canadian companies remain competitive and job creation opportunities are maintained across the economy. Our government has already put in place regulations for two of the largest sources of emissions in this country, the transportation and the electricity generation sectors. Expanding on our record, at the recent Climate Summit in New York, the Minister of the Environment announced further regulatory action on both light and heavy-duty vehicles. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, we also announced our government's intent to regulate hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, a group of greenhouse gases that, if left unregulated, would increase substantially in the next 10 to 15 years. These gases can have warming potentials up to 1,000 to 3,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide. To complement these ongoing regulatory efforts, our government has also made significant investments to begin Canada's transition to a clean energy economy. These investments will further drive emission reductions as well as support the development of the clean technology sector in Canada. Moving forward, our government will continue to look for opportunities to take action on climate change in a manner that reduces GHG emissions while maintaining job creation and economic growth for our neighbours. This, Mr. Speaker, is real action on the environment. This is leadership.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, I can't believe it. The Conservatives say they want regulations. The industries don't want regulations. And most Conservatives in most country don't believe in regulations. Mr. Speaker, two of the most pressing problems facing Canada are the large and growing income gap and too much CO2. We know that more and more Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, and the gap between rich and poor is way too large. We know that both have real economic impacts to Canada. With carbon fee and dividend, we have a simple solution that will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And, Mr. Speaker, big companies like Shell and BP want a price on carbon. The Conservatives aren't listening. As well, it would go a long way to reducing poverty and provide a basic income for each and every Canadian. In light of all these facts, Mr. Speaker, in light of the proven success of carbon pricing, in light of the potential for dividends to help families make ends meet, will the Conservatives listen, take enlightened self-interest, and consider carbon fee and dividend? And to repeat, Mr. Speaker, it might just get them re-elected.
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we are very proud of our record. We're a founding member of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition that is focused on taking immediate action to address climate change. As a result of collective action by governments, consumers, and businesses, Canada's 2020 GHG emissions are projected to be 128 megatons lower relative to a scenario with no action. We are accomplishing all of this without a job-killing carbon tax, which would raise the price of everything. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.